Hello everyone, my name is Lloyd Bowen and I'm the module convener for HS 1119 History and Practice Questions, Frameworks and Audiences. This session is designed, as it says on the tin, to give you some guidance about assessment on the module, what sort of coursework you'll need to complete, how virtual learning environment tests are implemented, and how assessment is structured. So it might seem a little bit strange to give you this advice, as it were, right at the start of the module, when some of the assessment that you're going to be doing doesn't come in until right at the end. However, what I want you to do is to think about this presentation as a resource for you to draw upon when you have questions about assessment, that you should come to this presentation to see if there are answers here, because they probably will be in this presentation for you. You'll probably find the answers about assessment right here. So this is something that's going to stay on Learning Central and will be available to you throughout the semester, throughout the course of the module, and you should use it as a resource. So we're putting this session at the top of the show, as it were, at the start of the module rather than at the end, on advice from students who have previously taken this course, who've said to us that they would have appreciated something like this resource to draw upon when they were doing history and practice. They would have liked to have known at the start a little bit more about what tests and assessments were coming at, what was expected of them, and so on. So as you can see on this slide, we're going to cover some topics in this short presentation about what's required in the coursework for this module, about VLE tests, that is to say virtual learning environment tests. Basically that means that you'll find them on Learning Central, about how you should approach writing the essay, which is the large part of assessment for this course. It's worth 60% of the marks on this module. When you should start working on your essays, how you can edit your essays, and what pitfalls you should be aware of. So what's the required assessment on the module? Here's a slide that gives you some idea about that. There are so-called VLE, Virtual Learning Environment tests. And these tests are available for 1 week from 12 p.m. on Monday to 12 p.m. on Friday, and you will need to take tests during this time, which means that you can take them different days, different times. There are 4 of them. And if we take a look at the module handbook for the course, which you'll find here, you will see that you have the 11 weeks of the first semester, the lectures that you will be encountering. These are, because of COVID protocols, recorded. The seminars that will happen every week, these are face-to-face small group teaching. So for the first week there isn't one. Second week, introduction module assessment, and so on. And notice that we have here as well the VLE tests, and you will see that there will be 4 of these. So in week 3, at 12 p.m. on the 18th of October, a VLE test will open. You will be told about this closer to the time, and it will close on the Friday of that week, again at 12 p.m. Now, in that week, you can take this test at any point. My advice to you is not to wait until the Friday to do it, just in case you have technical difficulties and so on. People did fall foul of that last year. So these tests take place periodically through the semester, and they are a substantial piece of assessment for the module. They comprise in total 40%, as you can see on this slide, of the mark that you'll receive on the module. They're not particularly challenging. I'll mention a bit more about them in a moment. They're designed to foreground and highlight the sorts of basic skills that we want students to obtain and to receive as they do the module. And these are the skills that are not simply specific to this module, History and Practice, but they will be transferable and applicable to all of your history courses. You'll be given lots of warning about when they'll come around, and you are able to get 40% of the course mark through these tests. You should pass all 4 of them. You should gain 100% on each of these tests. It's easy to do that, because if you go through the tests and you only get, say, 8 out of 10 answers correct, you simply retake the test again. It will give you some feedback on the answers that you've got wrong, and you just keep taking the test until you get 100% on them. There won't be any notification that you have now got 100%, but it will tell you that you have 100%, and you can simply submit the test and log out of Learning Central, and you'll be fine. You'll also see here on this slide that there is coursework, Essay 1 and Essay 2. The first piece, Essay 1, is in fact an abstract. You will hear more about this as you go through the course, and you will submit this to your tutor in week 5, I think it is. So that should be around about the start of November. You must submit this to be able to get all the coursework elements in. You will see that it's actually a formative piece of assessment, which means that it doesn't count to the module mark, but it is a required piece of the coursework. You must submit it. It's an integral part of the learning structure of that seminar. It will become clearer, I guess, what's required from that Essay 1 as you go through. You will be given guidance upon it. The abstract, when you get into the course a little bit, you'll start reading journal articles and chapters, and essentially what this exercise is designed to do is to help you read better, to help you understand what historical arguments are being made in a piece of literature, to distill its arguments and to present them in a very concise fashion. And then, as I mentioned, there's the third and final piece of assessment, and that's the second essay, which is 1,500 words long, and that will constitute 60% of the assessment for the module. So the bulk of assessment then is constituted by this essay, which is submitted in January 2022. So here are the deadlines that you will encounter for all assessments on this module. Okay. So you can see there are the 4 individual VLE tests, which are learning environment tests, using history department handbooks, using the library, referencing, essay writing. We're in weeks 3, 5, week 8 and week 10. So they open 18th of October at 12 noon and close on the 22nd of October at 12 noon. Open on the 1st of November, close on the 5th of November, and so on. And you simply take the tests in that period. As I said, you can take them as many times as you like to get 100%. The Essay 1, that abstract, is due in before your seminar in week 5, between the 1st and 5th of November. And then the long piece of assessment, the 1,500 word essay, that's due in at 12 noon on Thursday, the 13th of January, 2022. So please be aware then, this isn't negotiable unless you submit a requirement for extenuating circumstances and obtain beforehand and obtain an agreement that you have extenuating circumstances that can extend the deadline. These are immovable. Okay? These are the times when you must take that test. You have to submit that essay. So having talked a little bit about the VLE test, I just want to have a mention about these essays. So the first coursework option, Essay 1, take another look at the article that your seminar tutor set for Seminar 5, and then answer the question, to what extent do you agree with the author's argument? Now, that doesn't mean anything to you at present. Okay? This is the long essay question. What it essentially means is that you will be doing a session in a seminar with your tutor. This will happen in week 7, which is Seminar 5, in mid-November. They will set a piece of reading for you. You will try and get the argument out of that reading. And then if you want to do this assessed essay option, essentially, with your tutor, you will sort of read around that subject area and try and assess and pick apart the arguments of that essay. You'll read some more around that particular subject area. And that's the question. to what extent do you agree with the author's argument of the piece of literature that your individual tutor has assigned to you? Do you agree? Do you disagree? How can we modify it? And so on. So what we're trying to do here is to get you to think about the ways in which historians disagree and how you can actually become part of that conversation about how historical disagreements happen and about how we understand them, and about how you can begin to make arguments that engage with those essays, with those literatures, those historiographies. If that essay question isn't to your fancy, the second half of the course is rather more concerned with history in practice and in public. And if you take a look at the module handbook, you'll see that there are sessions on digital games, heritage, historical fiction, and what we might call sort of popular media, The Handmaid's Tale, and film. And so this second option, so you only do one, so you can either do to what extent do you agree with the argument of the essay that your tutor has set for you, or you do this one, which is compare and contrast the use of sources and arguments in academic history with the use of sources and arguments in popular history. Discuss with reference to one of the following: the history of one military event of your choice. So, I don't know, let's take something like perhaps the Battle of the Somme and think about how it's been presented differently in academic histories or in popular history. You could do the representation of one historical event in an academic history and in a film, or Amazon Prime or Netflix episode. So, I don't know, maybe you could do something about the Wall Street crash in academic history and how it's presented in Boardwalk Empire or something like that. The representation of one historical time period in an historical novel of your choice, as well as popular history. So, for example, recently I read a novel which was about Puritanism in mid-17th century Lancashire. I know, I would have a great time, right? And I'm a 17th century historian. And it was a good novel. In fact, it was written by an academically trained historian. But it's a very different type of thing to what you would find in an academic literature about Puritanism. And so it's quite interesting to compare and contrast how Puritanism of that period is presented in academic work and in something like a work of popular fiction. You could do the presentation of an historical period or event in a digital historical game and in academic history. You could also look at the interpretation of history at a site that you visited. So maybe something about a battle and the place called Battle and the Battle of Hastings. How have historical sites such as the National Trust or CADU presented the history surrounding that place compared with what we find in academic literature? It's quite interesting to think, for example, more recently there's been debates about the National Trust and great houses which were built upon the proceeds of the slave trade and which have rather smoothed over the sources of the wealth upon which those houses have been built. You might, for example, want to think about comparing and contrasting the presentation of history in those two sites. So those are the two sort of essay choices, subdivisions, if you like. The kinds of assessments that you'll have coming at you. So, for virtual learning environment tests, you'll be given plenty of opportunity, plenty of warning, one abstract that's going to be submitted to your tutor in week 5, and an essay question, which is worth 60%, that you'll do in January, and that's either going to be upon the subject of an article that your tutor discussed with you in mid-November, or it's on comparing and contrasting academic and popular histories. So I'm just going to run through in a bit more detail about how to approach the essay, the major bit of assessment for the module, and tactics for being successful in that approach. So what I'm going to do is run through what you can do for yourself, what we'll do for you, how you can make an argument. This is a bit of a busy slide. There's a lot of information on this. Of course, this PowerPoint will also be up on Learning Central, so you can look at the PowerPoint separately if you want to. So what you can do for yourself? Well, you can read the question, you can follow the directions. All right. I know you've been told this ad infinitum since you were doing GCSEs, but it is still key, and so many people fail to do it, to read the question. So the question, for example, take a look at the article that your tutor set for week, seminar 5 rather. To what extent do you agree with the author's argument? So to approach this question, you have to make sure that you've understood the author's argument. But you also have to answer that question, to what extent do you agree with the author's argument? And that's the key bit, to keep in the forefront of your mind, to keep in the forefront of your discussion. To what extent do you agree with it? And we've helped you with this a bit. We're having seminars, for example, on finding the argument in your reading. There are information sheets as well that I'll come on to in a moment that will give you some assistance here to tell us what, how to sort of extract information from your reading. And what we want you to do is to discuss in a bit more depth and with a bit more understanding a particular area of debate and discussion in historical work. And to do that, you need to look at the author's footnotes. You need to identify relevant journal articles, book chapters, and books to read. You need to make a note of the page numbers that the author cites. And using skills that you're going to develop on this module and from your using the library sort of VLE tests and information sheets, you'll be able to go out and get that material, read it, synthesize it, think about it, and engage with the question itself. And the question is your understanding of these articles and chapters the same as that or different to the author that's under review? Keep in mind that you're going to have to work to find some of these sources. Secondary literature, not all of it might be available. If you do have problems, you need to speak with your seminar tutor, please. Okay? Don't just say I couldn't find anything, so I didn't submit the essay. If you can't find the materials, send your seminar tutor an email. Ask them for a little bit of help and advice. Also, what you need to do, and this is really important, is you need to give yourself time. You need to give yourself time to locate and to read the relevant material. So although the essay isn't due until mid-January, you will have other essays and assessments that will be coming in around that time. What you don't want to have is to come to the start of January and you haven't done any work. And you end up getting completely snowed under, trying to find enough material, bombarding your seminar tutor. What if they're away on annual leave over Christmas? Being unable to find any physical resources that you might need because you're at home, and so on. So you will have to start thinking about the essay from the middle of this semester. And I would begin researching it then. Remember, this is 60% of this whole module that you're going to be doing in the first year.